Tim, Cian and Owen from Juggle. Welcome to IrishStartUpTV.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us. Thanks.
Lads, tell us a bit about the business.
Yeah, who wants to go first? Yeah, so Juggle basically, we're looking at the area of personal finance. We're looking at the problems that people have with managing their money. The way we see the world is, with the evolution in technology, everything moving online, in the world of personal finance, it just hasn't really caught up. It doesn't do enough for people at the moment. What's provided in the market, be it from banks or technology companies, doesn't do enough to help people reduce that level of effort, make it a small amount of time required to really actually do something valuable with your finances, to take away that financial stress which a lot of people struggle with today, and to make it really easy, essentially. So we've basically looked at this and said, you know what, we feel we can build a software in there that sits in the middle of all these financial institutions, that provide something of genuine value to people, that helps them understand what they're doing with their money, where is it coming from, where is it going, what changes they can make, how they can make them, and do that quickly and easily, and really change the way people engage with their personal finances or money, make it much more interactive, much more engaging, and much more valuable to people as well. So that's kind of the premise behind Juggle.
You guys used to work together before?
That's right, yeah. So the three of us were working at a capital market software firm called Murex for nine or 10 years. The three of us were there together. So that's where we actually met, and were working in different departments, but collaborating at a number of projects together. And it was towards the latter years there where we started to talk about a few different ideas, what our vision would be, and we kind of realised that some of the tools and technology that was there for traders and investment managers could be actually used for managing household and family finances.
And you guys are a little older. You're not you're not the kind of kids emerging out of college. I mean, the truth is that from a numbers point of view, the average entrepreneur who does well is actually 35 years of age. But the reason I call it out is that you're coming into this space with a rather large degree of experience and also domain expertise. How instrumental has that been in helping you to get off the ground with a new product that's completely owned and conceived by yourselves?
Yeah, it's definitely helpful, especially when it comes to doing things like product design from the ground up. We've a lot of experience in doing that. That's been really helpful in terms of not building a product to solve just the problem that's right in front of us, but thinking about like the bigger picture, and okay, we'll solve that problem, but once we've solved that problem, there are other avenues that we could go down further down the road. So building our platform, it's been very helpful. Engaging with people in the industry and in the market, it's quite useful to have that level of experience behind you. It brings a certain level of trust that, when you say that you understand how the markets work, how these things work, and how these tools can be leveraged, as Owen was saying, for personal benefit. People believe and understand that, so it's been very helpful in that sense. So
there's a lot of buzz, maybe even hype around fintech, certainly in Europe and most definitely in Dublin. How much do you think is it hype, and how much is it that financial institutions are genuinely looking to engage and do things better?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. As you say, there is a huge amount of hype. I think everybody feels that things are going to change significantly. I don't think the plates have settled yet in terms of the way things are all going to fit together. I think we're still in that phase of trying to figure out what things work in what way, what technologies suit what best. I think that's going to go on for a period longer. I think in the payments area, you've seen massive disruption around what people are doing. There's online banks, neobanks coming to the fore as well now. It'll be interesting to see what kind of traction that they get. They seem to be doing quite well. In our own space, interestingly enough, our focus is really around real customer engagement. The way we look at it is like the banks are there, have been there, and will be there in the future. The engagement model from customers' perspective is going to change. One way or another, it is going to change. People no longer want an online banking solution where you can see a balance and a list of transactions. It doesn't provide any value anymore. Everybody's moving towards mobile. Payments are becoming easier to process and to handle from a user perspective. and the ability to manage your money is one of the key areas that we see that has to be tackled and will be. And even from a regulatory perspective, one of the big things coming down the line is PSD2, which is going to basically force the bank's hands in opening up access to the consumer's data to third parties. So it will allow users to basically say, I authorize this third party to have access to my data, and the bank must provide a standardized, secure access point for third parties, which is great from many facets of the fintech world, but from ours especially it'll be very good because it smooths that engagement process and that access process.
A lot of the regulation around fintech, or a lot of the regulation around finance, comes from the EU. I think as a slightly tangential point, it's interesting to note that in the UK, Her Majesty's Treasury are going to force banks to have an open access API as of next year. To what extent is the regulation in the UK and in the EU influencing the future of fintech?
Significantly with PSD2. So PSD2 is a European-wide regulation that will come into force across all European countries. I mean, it's been put in place now, and as usual there'll be a leeway in terms of the amount of time that banks have to basically adopt it and put it in place. So over the next 2 years, like you say, what they've done in the UK, where certain banks have a style of open API access, it's more of a standardized data extraction format that they have. But this will provide an actual real infrastructure for API access to data. Because in essence, and the way I look at it anyway, is that my transactional data, my banking data is my data. So if I want to give it to somebody, it's my choice to be able to give it to different people. So that's what this regulation will allow.
And that's quite significant. I remember from chatting with you before, a critical success factor for your product is being able to share your information and share your passwords with your end user. How challenging is that as it stands?
As it stands, it's one of the key challenges that we have, because, and it's one of the things that I think a lot of fintech startups have. Given that you're actually operating in the space of people's finances, and you're a newcomer to the market, you don't have that established trust just right away, and it's a key point that, number one, we have to overcome that challenge, and number two, it's another reason why we don't see it as us against them when it comes to financial institutions. They have that established trust and that established customer base, and it's something that we want to work with as well in terms of leveraging that to also be in that sphere of trust. In the early days, prior to say the regulation that Tim was mentioning coming online, that is quite difficult. It is a challenge. It's not easy for a new fintech company to just come out and say, okay, will you kind of give us your access details and we'll provide you this value for that. And we do obviously have security at our absolute core of everything we've done around the product. But as the market moves, and something in particular with the regulation, that barrier will be kind of taken away naturally, where you are an authorized entity to have secure access to the banking data of a user, governed by the regulator itself. But it's a key challenge, I think, for all fintechs to kind of have that established trust, quite quickly, in a space where you're dealing with people's finances as well. So.
For want of a better way of phrasing the question, are we seeing a bit of a U-turn on security, certainly in the payment space, that it became quite difficult to buy things in Ireland? You had to have a chip and pin and so forth, whereas you go to the US and you could just swipe your card under $20. Now we're seeing with the new contactless systems that I think the threshold has been increased from 15 to €30, so that we're seeing an easier way of paying. Is that a U-turn or what is that?
I think it's kind of people trying to find the good mix of user friendliness and ease of use for the consumer, but at the same time there's also a drive on the other side of it to find new ways and more secure ways of authenticating. You've even got people coming onto the innovation program that we're going to do that are looking at different ways of authenticating, whether that's through whatever ECG recognition or thumbprints or biometrics or whatever it is. I think while they are opening up and making it easier for people to pay, and less more frictionless, and just kind of less barriers basically to people being able to pay, at the same time there's a big drive on the other side towards making that secure, because I think there is a general fear and concern in a lot of things around, especially when it comes to transferring money, that if it becomes too open and too easy, that there's a risk there from a security perspective. So you do see and there's a lot of movement, I think, on the other side in terms of finding ways that still deliver that ease of use and that kind of frictionless experience to the user, but are very secure on the background. I think there's a massive drive on that.
There's a big fear in the consumer world around security. It's a weird paradox, which is people want things easier and simpler and faster and quicker, but at the same time you see all the breaches that have happened recently. It is that paradox between simplicity and ease versus being highly secure, and they necessarily don't always go well together at the moment, but as Cian says, I think the evolutions will get there in time. So
yeah, it's funny to see the generations coming through. That a friend of mine is also doing something in the fintech space, and he was telling me that they were doing a lot of research with college students, and they're finding it's quite normal for college students to swap phones around, whereas slightly older guys and girls don't want anyone touching their phones. So there's more of a comfort as well with technology and giving away a lot of data. You grow up, if you're a teenager now, you're using Facebook and Snapchat and you're sharing an awful lot more. So I wonder how instrumental is that going to be to shaping the future of finance?
Yeah, demographically there's a big shift. It's one of the things I always find interesting when we talk about it as well, though. When it comes to sharing data, I'm not convinced, it's my own opinion anyway, that people understand what it means when you put your data out in the public sphere. I think people do it, as in pushing your stuff out into the World Wide Web, for example. You kind of go, okay, I'm sharing with my friends, but in essence you're giving away rights to your own data, and I don't think people quite understand that. It's a bit like when you look at softwares that are free, for example. Everybody wants a free software, everybody wants a free app.
There's no such thing as a free app.
But there's no such thing as a free app. This is the thing, and I think people are not entirely aware, I might be wrong, but not entirely aware of what's happening on the flip side of that. Is the reason that you're getting it for free is not through someone's goodwill. There is a monetization that is going to occur there somewhere. Where are they taking your data and selling it to somebody else? Are they pushing advertisements at you? So there is always a trade-off between that, giving away stuff for free versus what you're getting back. Demographically, though, as you say, I think there is quite a big shift, which is people do want things for free at a younger age. They're probably more comfortable giving away data and personal information to get it for free. Will that hold or last? Who knows?
Moving towards your own personal stories, what inspired you to do a startup?
Well, I suppose on my side, this is my second startup, so I was originally involved with one, come back about 15 years ago, on the mobile services and software side, Zamino. So had a great experience doing that for 4 or 5 years, and all the ups and downs of what a startup is. Then having worked in the corporate world for 10 years, there was a bit of a niche there, and that eventually it needed to be scratched. So going back to what I was saying earlier on, the three of us were working together, in a capital markets trading software firm. We were, had an idea where we thought, this can really do a job for, a lot of people and really transform the kind of the lie of the land as it was then. And so having that problem ourselves and identifying with that problem, and then knowing, and being able to validate that applies to a broader set of people as well, we thought, we can give this a fair go.
And you've just recently been successful in getting onto the Accenture FinTech program.
Yeah, it's great. I think first of all, really enjoyable process. Just the people that we've been engaged with and talking to from the speed dating round, which was a lot of fun.
So maybe explain a little bit more about what was involved. Firstly, what is the program and what did you guys have to do to get involved?
The FinTech Innovation Program, it basically brings together significant established FinTech companies in Ireland, from banks to payments companies, who are basically with Accenture sponsoring a program to bring innovative technologies together, new companies, startups companies together, and run them through a 3-month program. So we filled out an application form, put together a small video, sent it in. Were successful, brought through to the next round. I think there was 18 companies at that stage, which was speed dating, which was quite an interesting morning.
Was it 8:30 in the morning as well?
At 8:30 in the morning. So basically we spent 9 minutes going around to each of the different companies, and you gave a 4-minute pitch in a Q&A session after
So these
that.
are the established companies. So it could have been, we'll say for argument's sake, Bank of Ireland or
Bank
Ulster
of Ireland,
Bank. Or,
Ulster Bank,
So you kind of had
AIB.
the banks, you had the kind of more on the fund side, so you had like State Street, Credit Suisse, you had
Citi.
the payment companies, and then you even had Google as well, were there
Okay.
as well. They were represented. So there was, you know, a broad mix across the sector.
How helpful was that, even just as an opportunity to get some business cards?
On the speed dating round itself, I mean, that was useful in itself. In some cases, we actually, you know, we had met maybe some people from the financial institution before, but it was really useful to meet people that you wouldn't find it easy to get access to, number one, and number two, that were there to give you as well their very quick, open opinion on what you were saying, or ask you very specific questions that they had in mind. And a number of them, even out of that speed dating round, were, you know, quite interested and quite open to follow up afterwards, you know. So it was useful, and I think the biggest thing was it was a big cross section, you know. So you had, as you said, we had the kind of three major banks in Ireland. We had Ulster Bank, Bank of Ireland, AIB. But on the other hand, it was very useful to hear from people, even from the payment side of things, or even from Google, you know, who we wouldn't have specifically been going out to talk to otherwise, you know. And it was useful to hear their perspective just more generally on the product, you know, especially coming from maybe technology backgrounds and pure technology solutions. You know. So it was very interesting and very useful. I think the main thing on that day was that, as you said, we started like really early in the morning, sat down, did your first pitch. I think there was probably a marked difference between the first one and the last one. You know, by the time you got to the last one, you were kind of, you know,
flowing.
in the flow, and you know, you just kind of delivered it, and you were getting into the conversation very quickly, and it was very easy. You know, the first one was a little bit of, you know, pressure, a bit stiffness in it, you know, but it was a marked difference. You know, even across the whole room, you could feel the energy as well in the room change as the day got on. You know.
Brilliant.
The other really useful thing out of it actually has been meeting the other companies.
Yeah.
I mean, genuinely a good bunch of people. We've been in contact with them outside of the program, the other startups, even the ones that haven't made it through. We've still kept in contact with. You know, it's always good to be talking to people who are in the same status as yourself. Who have the same fears, the same problems, the same troubles, etc. And it's just great to have that engagement, to be able to share. Some people might be slightly ahead of you and be able to give you a bit of advice and help. You know, sometimes a bit of encouragement when it's when you're on the down loop, because the worlds of startups, as you probably well know, it's on a Monday you're top of the world, and on Tuesday morning you get an email you're bottom of the dumps, and on Wednesday morning you're back up again, which is it's part and parcel of it, which is great. But it's you have to be cut out for it. So it's great to have people who've been through it before that can kind of talk you through that stuff. Being at the stage that we're at now, being surrounded by fintech companies is absolutely critical to us, and hugely interesting. Understanding what other people are doing, the sectors that they're in, how they're doing it, the challenges they have, the potential synergies between what we're doing and what they're doing, the engagements that they're having with the banks, the ideas that they're even sharing with us that can be helpful for us, that we can give back and be helpful with them. We're at the stage now where just getting into this program is absolutely right for us. So it's great. It's going to be an exciting start to 2016.
Fantastic. So then, on the note of 2016, within the next sort of 6 months, because we're in December 2015 now, are there any other significant milestones that you have either set for yourselves or that you are hoping to achieve?
Yeah, so I mean, over the next 3 to 6 months, the program is going to run for the first half of that. Our plans, as you know, on the business are to very much try and take the product and try and find more monetizable, commercialized routes for it to market, and to start getting the revenue ticking over on a number of those. So, if we get to the point whereby we've 2 or 3 of those different models validated, and where we've identified that they're doing particular jobs, the product's doing a particular job for them, and we think, you know, we'll have brought the company and the business to, you know, another important stage in its development.
And just to remind us as well, so like Intercom is a great example of an Irish success story, and it's arguable that the reason why the guys have done so well are because they had the right mix of experience, both on the technical and the business side, and also just the doing the startup. So just remind us about, so Owen, you've come from finance and you've done a startup, and Cian, you're a developer.
Yeah.
So just in terms of that, like how would you define yourselves as individuals? Because I would see from chatting to you before, I saw very much a product team, so I just wanted to share that with the audience before we signed off.
Yeah, so I've spent the last 8 or 9 years before we, you know, set up the company here, working on the business development, sales and marketing side, on the B2B side. So had the previous experience of the original startup with a mixture of B2C, B2B, but on product management, product development, and then 8 or 9 years on the sales and marketing and business development side. So that's where I spend most of my time in the last number of years.
And me, as I said, it's kind of development and technology as my primary background, and then more recently kind of taking both the tech and the things coming in from the business and turning it into products from the ground up.
And myself then, so I was based in the Dublin office for the last 11 years. So I did a mix of two things. One was product management, which is great because it helps us work together very well in terms of product design. But also I did a lot of client account management. So I actually worked with the banks supporting the implementation and management and support of the users of the software. So again, from a customer engagement perspective, it's quite a useful experience to have. So
it's a really great team, and it's fantastic that you have the opportunity in 2016 as well to really get out of the gates running with this accelerator. So thanks very much for chatting with us today, and best of luck, and looking forward to keeping posted on updates.
Absolutely,
Thanks
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thanks for talking to us.
Well done, lads.
Cheers.
Good stuff.
Cheers.
Ian, well done. Thank you.